ability. So,
All right, members, any questions? Witness? All right, we'll move on to next witness.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members, my name is Shannon Halbrook. I'm with Every Texan, and I'm testifying on SB4. So we are an equity-focused organization that believes that all Texans should be able to reach their full potential. So according to the LBB, the cost of the tax cuts since HB3 in 2019 and then the tax cuts we had 2 years ago, total cumulative cost is about $51 billion. That's a lot of money. And we think it's time to sort of take a step back and think about, okay, should we be continuing to do more tax cuts, or should we think about some of the other priorities for the state, namely investing in our public education system, in our state workforce, in our infrastructure, in our healthcare system, et cetera. So I do want to remind y'all too that the carryover balance that we have right now of $25 billion is not permanent. And there's this question about the state sort of filling the bucket in terms of public education funding. Well, it's doing that for now, but the next downturn that we have, the state's going to be looking around saying, okay, where can we cut, because we don't have that carryover balance anymore. So it's just something to keep in mind. So that being said, we don't want to keep doing more cuts. We're not in favor of that. But we certainly realize that folks are hurting. Folks are paying high property taxes, and folks, especially over 65, are really struggling. Renters are really struggling, and other low-income Texans. So if we're going to do more cuts, we think they should be as equitable as possible. And in that sense, the increase in the homestead exemption is the most equitable way to do it. The Comptroller's exemptions and incidents report, which just came out, confirms what we knew all along, which is that the incidence of the increase in the exemption, is really felt across the income spectrum, whereas ways like appraisal caps and other methods to cut property taxes really benefit the folks at the top the very most. Sometimes more than half of the benefit of a tax cut goes to the upper 20%. So that being said, we would also really like to see something a little bit more targeted to really get the most bang for the buck in terms of the tax cuts, like a circuit breaker or renters rebate, more help for renters directly. I appreciate the conversation earlier about renters. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Members, any questions of the witness? All right. Chair recognizes Bill Peacock.
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Bill Peacock. I'm here representing myself, and I really appreciate all the effort that y'all have put into property tax relief here in Texas over the last 6 years, but it hasn't worked as well as it should have, so that's why I'm opposed to Senate Bill 4 today. So what you put in, basically $18 billion on property tax relief in 2023. What happened? Property taxes went up $6 billion since then. Since 2019, the cost of those previous tax relief efforts is about $45 billion, if I've done the math right, since that time. And what's happened to property taxes since 2019? They've gone up $23 billion. So it's not working. And I suggest the reason it's not working is there are two things. One, compression rather than homestead exemption is the best way to go. And two, none of it will work unless you really put a limit on local government spending and the local government tax increases that go along with it. There's supposed to be 3.5% limits on property tax growth, more or less, on the cities and counties, but they've been going up 8, 9, 10% a year for quite some time now because of all the loopholes in that, and it's just not working. I've heard around the Capitol that some members are getting a little weary of continuing to spend money on property tax relief and not getting much results, and so they might want to move on to other things like spending on infrastructure or schools or things like that. But I suggest really the people who are getting the most weary are taxpayers who continue to pay higher property taxes and don't get any relief or get very little relief despite the efforts that y'all are making up here. So I'm against the bill, not because it's a bad bill, but because I think there's a better way to go. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions of our witnesses here? All right, thank you all for